I'm Brittany.
And I'm Heather.
Welcome to Okayest Moms, the podcast.
A place to be more than just mom.
Hey everyone, welcome to our first episode of our back to school series, and happy 4th of July, which those two things don't belong together, but here we are. We start our back to school series early because, well, one, our kids go back to school super early in August. And also it's kind of nice to get on the wavelength of, start your forward thinking about back to school. Make it ease into it a bit. Well, and we found, at least for us at this point in the summer, the moms are counting down until school starts again. So it's a good, the moms are in the mindset for the most part. So
I am.
And if you're not in the mindset, this is a good way to start processing it in little chunks.
Yeah, I love that.
All right, this first episode, we are going to be talking all about volunteering. And for the purpose of this episode, we're talking about volunteering in a broad scope, not just at school, but basically any kind of kid activity, because back to school season is also kind of the kickoff of other extracurricular activities. It seems like everything always starts up back at once. So for the purpose of this, it's volunteering in any kind of kid-related activity.
Great fun. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Our listeners know my love and devotion for a certain big box store, but you might be surprised to know that I have a new big box store in my life.
Sam's Club offers the bulk pantry staples, snacks, and fresh produce you've come to expect, but it also offers a wide variety of home goods, electronics, toys, and even gas stations at most locations. You can even scan and go as you shop, which means that you are spending less time in line to check out. All you have to do is scan the barcodes as you add things to your cart, go through a special line to finish the process, and you're on your way.
Right now, Okayest Moms listeners can get a Sam's Club membership for only $25, which is 50% off the regular price. Go to the link in the show notes to get your membership today.
With the busy back-to-school season just around the corner, there has never been a better time to try HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get everything you need to get dinner on the table delivered directly to your door. You choose the meals on their weekly menu, how many servings you'd like it to be, and they do the rest. No more trips to the grocery store or endless hours of meal planning because you can do it all in one step with HelloFresh. And if your plans change, you can easily skip a week on their super user-friendly app.
Okayest Moms listeners can get 18 meals free, which is 50% off your first 4 boxes, making the price per serving under $5. To get this deal, just click through the link in our show notes and complete your order.
And we're back. Okay, Heather, talk to me about volunteering.
Okay, well, so first I feel like we have to define volunteering.
Okay.
So I think there's the official title of volunteer where you're on your school's PTA, PTO, PTC, whatever the hell they call it. Or you have a standing appointment in the classroom where you are going and helping the teacher in some way, or you have some kind of official title in whatever kid activity you have. And then I think what people don't understand, this is what I really want to drill down today, is that there's the unofficial volunteer role as well. And that's just when your kid is registered in some kind of volunteer-run organization. And as a parent participant, you are a lowercase volunteer, little v volunteer. You are not, you don't have an official title as coach or team mom or backstage helper or whatever, insert appropriate thing for your kid's activity. But there is still some kind of awareness required of you. There is still some kind of level of keeping up on communications. There is some form of involvement, whether it's active or inactive. So I feel like that's my distinction. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I think that a lot of people in their minds think I am paying for this sport, extracurricular, insert whatever. And so there, wash my hands of it. That's all I need to do. But in reality, there is just so much more that goes into any kid activity. So, yes, I do
Well,
agree.
and that might be true like on a travel team. I know in our sports episode we talked about more competitive type sports. And I know in some of those cases they do hire coaches and they do have like very specific practice protocol where sometimes it's closed to parents or like I understand that depending on, but like in a rec sport where it is run entirely by volunteers, I think you are not off the hook. I'm sorry. You have signed up to be a little V volunteer, whether you knew it or not.
Right. Even if that means staying at practice and wrangling your wild child.
Because, newsflash, your 5-year-old, 6-year-old probably can't be at practice by themselves.
Yeah, that's wild.
And if you need to, like, at least, like, speak to the coach about it. Don't just, like, drop them off and say, good luck.
Wow, sounds like you're
Anyways,
speaking from experience.
we're getting ahead of ourselves. All right. So, as far as my role in volunteering, I have always volunteered in my kids' classrooms as I have been able to. COVID obviously took a large break in that, as we all know. I've also always been some kind of role on their sports teams, which I have not like always wanted to do. And a lot of the times I feel like I've been kind of suckered into things. This past school year, I was also on the board for our school's PTC. And again, that was a role that I took upon myself because I'm dumb. And I saw the need and I felt myself complaining a lot about things that weren't happening. And so I felt like I needed to shut up and get involved. So that's
What? You complained and then you did something about it?
I know. It's really crazy. I know. I also feel like it's worth mentioning that AJ has coached soccer the last 2 years, has coached baseball the last 2 years, and is likely potentially going to be coaching again for soccer in the fall. So, and if you've never had your spouse like a capital V volunteer, you are basically also the volunteer. So it's like your whole family is the volunteer. So I feel like that's worth mentioning as well. How about you?
Similarly, at school, I was actually one of those people who was like, I don't want an official title. I can't, I have too much going on. So I ended up on my kids' school's PTC board. I knew I didn't have the personality to volunteer in the classroom. I just can't handle that. And so what I realized was that there are so many volunteer jobs that need to be filled. It isn't just like being in the classroom, making copies, like that kind of thing. So I got involved with that. I was on the PTC board for 5 years, and now I am free since we are moving schools. And we will see what happens at the new schools. Now my kids are split, so I feel like this is going to be a different kind of juggling act between schools. I guess I'll just see like what the need is at each one, but that'll be stay tuned for an update on that. And basically every sports team that they've been on, I have been voluntold or asked to be a team manager or to help in some way, plan a party, whatever it is. And currently, Harrison is on a conch soccer team, and I am the team manager because somehow I got the reputation of being the team manager. Because this is what happens. The same people, they don't even ask the group anymore if somebody has done it before. And I'm happy to do it. I'd rather have control and know what's going on, to be honest. But it's not really fair for people to just be put into roles. Like, anyway, this is getting ahead of ourselves. So those are my current capital V volunteer roles as of now.
All right. Well, let's actually get into some of those challenges. Well, you know what? Let's start on a positive note. What has been like the good part about volunteering for you? What have you enjoyed about it?
My kids love seeing me around campus. And I even have this like note on my wall that every time they did some sort of thank you note for like either the crossing guard or whatever, Sully would write me a note and say, thank you for making the school so great. And I don't know. I think there's something to your kids seeing you involved and,
There have been many studies done that the more engaged and active a parent is in the school campus specifically, the more engaged the student is in the well-being of the school. It just builds the community of the school because they see that it's larger than just them going to this place away from their family every day. And it's like, oh, our whole entire family is involved in the well-being and the success of this place where I have to go. And it really does make an improvement on the students' learning and their just outlook on school in general.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the main one that is a plus. I'm nosy and I like to know what's going on. And it really does give you like an in with teachers or the administrators.
And then gossip is the whole reason. So we have Instagram responses because we pose these questions to you. Somebody said that a quality of a good volunteer was no gossiping. And I'm going to push back on that because that's literally the only perk. Listen, what you are paid in dollars, you are paid in information. And that is worth gold.
Right. I mean, yes, exactly. So other pluses, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, all those things that you said. I think that you get a good understanding. I mean, in most of the cases, especially if you're volunteering in different activities and things, it's the same kids and on these teams. It's the same kids from sports teams year after year. It's the same kids from school. It's the same kids from the neighborhood. And I really think, I really love the community building aspect of it. As a kid, I moved around each elementary school, middle school, and high school. I was in a different district. And so I kind of lost that community every time. But I really love the idea of like when our kids are graduating high school, looking back at their like old pictures and like, oh, look, dad coached your team. And like, oh, what happened to this kid? And like, oh, this kid was in my science class or like whatever. Like, I really like the long-term community that we're building.
Yeah.
And just kind of, I love the perspective it's given me too. Honestly, like that volunteering at school and being involved played a big role in me going back to teaching because you get to learn so much of the behind the scenes and how things function or are not functioning. And you really see the need and you really remember that all of the adults on a school campus are not there for fame and fortune. Like they're there because they really care and want to make a difference. And that attitude done well in the right environment is really infectious. And so I think that's really fun to be a part of as well.
Yeah. Love that.
So the challenges.
Oh, good. Well, like I started saying, it's always the same people. And you know what? I shouldn't say always, but oftentimes it's the same people who, because they know what and how and all of the bones of how to do it, they just do it to get it done. And that's great. But there has to be like an element of not inclusivity, but like wrangling people in, like give them a little piece. And that way
they need ownership of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really hard to do. So, getting buy-in from people is always the toughest part.
Yeah. I'd say the involvement is absolutely, and involvement on any level is extremely difficult. You and I are in a national like parent teacher group organization. And so this is a problem. I see them post almost daily so this is like across, this isn't just like our little area. This is around the country. People are constantly, how are you getting volunteers? How are you reaching people? How are you getting them to even read an email? And part of the role I took on at school was like in being in charge of communication. So I would post on Instagram. I would post on Instagram stories. I would post it on Facebook. I would then share it to the like closed Facebook groups for our specific school that I was in. I would post it in our neighborhood Facebook groups. That way, in any like incoming, like just the more times it could be posted, maybe somebody would see it. We would send flyers home. We would put stickers on the kids as they were leaving for the day. We would put signs and posters on the gates at dismissal. And we would still have parents say, I had no idea this was happening. And it was just so frustrating. We would do all calls from the school. We would do texts from the school. We would do mass emails from our PTC account and from the school. And I'm talking like this is all of these things done for one event. So it wasn't just like these were things like scattershot things we tried all throughout the year. These are things that we did just for one event. And people would still, I didn't know. I never, this is the first time hearing about it.
Oh my God. And I mean, your school community is very large. I feel like there's always going to be those people that just like have their head.
There's always going to be a population who, for whatever reason, cannot receive the information.
cannot input into their brain. And that's so common.
And I feel like it's worth mentioning too that there's no language barrier. There's no
right.
socioeconomic barrier. That is not a challenge we face. And I've faced that challenge in different school communities, and that is its own very specific set of challenges. This is not that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's frustrating.
And we're here, so let's just get into it.
We're here.
I think the overarching problem is that parents are burnt out over the last 3 years of having to essentially take on all of these roles in our community on our own, in our homes, and still really, and I know at this point, people are probably rolling their eyes thinking like, we're 3 years out from this at this point. But the infrastructure crumbled around us and it was not rebuilt for the world that we are currently in. Right. And we were all expected to just pick up and carry on as if nothing had happened. And we're tired. And I get that. I really, truly do. But if you want your kid to be involved in things, it doesn't just happen. Outside of like paying for a lesson with a private instructor or like group instructor or something, you have to be involved to make these activities good for our kids. And I get that people work full time, and I know I understand that there are different seasons of life where people cannot do it, whatever. I get the barriers. I truly, truly do. But I do think that there are some ways that you can contribute and volunteer. And if all you can do is read the fucking email, then please just read the fucking email.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's so helpful. Just being knowledgeable and being able to like answer questions if you hear, or to tell your friends about, we had our end of the year like PTC party, and it was very sad because I'm leaving, obviously, and also another person who was the president is also leaving, so it was a sad thing. And they asked our advice on what the best way moving forward is, and I was like, bring your friends into it. Like the best network is the one that you already have. Like you can get people, what your friends are good at, what their strengths are, and you can hand off, like if somebody's good at social media, let them run the Facebook page. Or if somebody's like has extra time in the morning because their kid is now in kindergarten, have them make the copies of the event flyers. Like there are little tiny things that can be delegated. It's just like reframing how you think about it, so it doesn't seem like such a big scary thing.
I will say though, there's no faster way to become a leper than to be PTC president. I went for a very brief moment in time was PTC president, and then I since abdicated my throne. But nobody will run from you faster when they know that you could potentially be asking them to do something. I was like, no, I see you. Come here.
You have a red letter on your shoulder.
Oh, there's like a little like Sims diamond above your head. Everybody knows. So some of the things that you guys said that were preventing you guys, a lot of you said a lack of childcare, which I have seen time and again, that there's a younger sibling who can't be on school campus, can't, you know, be in the dugout or like, I don't know. I keep baseball is the season we're just coming off of. So that's where all of my like, that's where my focus has been. So, what are some ways that somebody with younger siblings at home can help participate?
I can actually go off my own experience when before Sully was in school, and I would just bring him. And I know things are different now because we're post pandemic and maybe different rules, although not around here. I would bring him to events. Like we had a dance-a-thon, and I brought him and he danced with all the kids while we were there. There are also like lots of work from home jobs. That's when I started doing the social media for our parent teacher group. And, that's from home and easy enough
Well,
to.
even just ask, like your school may have some kind of task that can be done from home. Just say, hey,
Yeah.
I have limited hours. I can't do it during the school day. What can I do? I have 3 hours a week I can give you. What can I do?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the more specific you are about your availability, I think the better you can find something that can work for you.
Totally. Yep. Exactly.
I think also too, just making it part of just like what your family's doing. I know Isla's been drugged to more baseball games than she's ever cared to want to be at, but we're just as a spectator. But it's just that's what our family's doing. We are all going to the baseball field Saturday morning. Nobody particularly loves it except your brother, but this is what's happening. Can you help me put the bases out? Like, and so many times I have so many pictures of her standing next to AJ with the whistle because she thought she was assistant coach. Like, it's just, you just have to find a way to fold them into it and make them feel a part of it. And it's just, I mean, if you are willing to dedicate the time to get the one kid there for the activity, I mean, you've essentially dedicated your entire family's time to be there because at like some point somebody's like that time's already carved out in the family schedule for the most part. So find a way to get the other kid involved. And I realize younger kids that can be more difficult, but there are ways to do it. And
Ours is with bribery that his friends will be there. So luckily we have kids who have young siblings who are Sully's age that, hey, you can go play with your friends at the park. There's a park at this field. And so that's what it's always what he can get out of it. But once you know what that is, it makes it easier.
Right. Another response said they were nervous to get involved. So I don't know if this is just like a social anxiety or they were nervous that it would potentially suck them into more things. Such very real fear. I get it. But to that, I would just say, for some reason, doing things for my kids or because of my kids has always helped get through any kind of social anxiety. Like making friends as an adult or even just like interacting with people that you wouldn't necessarily interact with ordinarily is hard. But when you're all there with the pretense of your children, I think that makes it a little bit easier. So maybe looking at it through that lens could be helpful. As far as I get being nervous to want to being asked to do more. But like I think if you again, start small. If all you do is show up to meetings and get the information, honestly, like that, you don't know how excited PTC board members get just to have like fresh meat at the meeting.
Let me see.
Like, oh my God, you saw my post. You're here. Thank you.
It is the
Somebody's
best.
out there. The best.
Then we like pounce. Be our friend.
But just like sit in the back and wear your sunglasses and a hat, and it's okay. And I think another response we got was that they're just in the phase of life where they're just trying to survive parenting. And I totally can relate to this. I absolutely understand it. And I think it's okay in phases and seasons of life to know that you are at your limit, but just know that we need you to come back around when you're ready.
Yeah. And it changes, don't
Totally.
write it off forever. Cause I think that's what a lot of people do. And then it's easy to say no if you keep saying no,
Exactly. And it's also easy to keep saying yes when you've already said yes.
Well, hey, there should be a balance on both sides.
Exactly. And that's one thing I really tried to remember is that just because I don't see the parent involved in the activity that I'm overly involved in does not mean that they aren't doing something somewhere else.
Sure.
So I'm trying. So let's talk about some things that people don't necessarily know about parent volunteer organizations or things that are realized that is required of them. So like I'm thinking people who play the larger roles like coaches, board members, somebody with like, like the capital V volunteers. What are some things that people don't realize those people have to do?
Oh gosh. Well, why don't you say it from the coach's perspective? Because I feel like that is the biggest, hardest job.
I think people think, well, I think they just see it from their trial participants' perspective. They take them to practice, they take them to the game, and then it's over. But the coach has to figure out what is happening at a practice. What kind of drills are they doing? Did the league give us that kind of equipment to do said drills? Do I want to invest as the volunteer coach in the equipment to do this thing? Is my own personal child going to stay in the activity long enough to make that worth it? Then depending on what the league provides you, can be a lot of hidden costs, like so equipment, different apps to communicate with the families on the team. Some leagues will give you an app that is amazing. Well, I mean, fine, because none of these apps are amazing. But then some leagues won't, and they'll just hand you like a roster of emails. And if you've ever tried to contact a group of people via email, it is very difficult. So we have upgraded our teams to different apps that have given us more capabilities and just like the time involved. If you're playing a sport like baseball, for example, every time you're home, you need to prep the field, which involves watering it, putting bases out, painting lines. Like it's a lot. And if your coach is asking like, hey, can anybody be there half an hour early, which I know is already hard at a 5:00 game, and you have to be there at 4:30 to be there at 4. I know how hard that is because the coach is likely leaving work early to do that.
Right.
And that always isn't an easy feat for 4.5 months at a time to leave work early 3 times a week. I just think there are a lot of behind the scenes things. And I know people are probably thinking like, oh, well, that's what they volunteered for. Well, you know what? Do you know how many times AJ has volunteered, like woken up one day and like, I'm going to coach soccer? 0 fucking times. It has always been like, we will disband this team if we don't have enough coaches. If you want your kid to play, we need a coach and somebody needs to do it. Otherwise, we're cutting this team. And it's been like, okay, well, I guess I have to do this. Like, right. It's always been begrudgingly
under duress.
Right. It's never been like, soccer. It's like, okay, cool. I guess
this is my passion.
Right. Because if your passion is coaching 5-year-olds at soccer,
oh my God, no.
I would love your medication cocktail.
I mean, like the hidden costs and the time, like the time is so valuable. And I mean, if you're just a parent with a kid on the team, here are some tips. Okay. Read everything and actually internalize it. Pay your team manager or coach, whoever's handling whatever team party.
Instantly.
Pay.
Instantly.
Please pay. I think I'm still waiting on like $50 from 18 people. Like,
oh, I believe it. Because, okay, let's just talk like soccer, for example, because for like the beginning of the season startup costs, and I feel like these are pretty low, relatively speaking, for sports in general. So at least for rec soccer here in our area, it's a team banner, which you may or may not have to pay for depending on how much of the team has stayed together and you're able to use it from years before. It's special socks. It is, and that's just for your team. It is the uniform, which is an out-of-pocket cost, not included in the registration for some ungodly idea.
Yeah.
It's the equipment, which of course, like I think everyone knows if you sign your kid up for soccer, you're going to be on the hook for cleats and shin guards. So that's a relatively low one. But that right there, some teams will even collect for the end of the year party and coaches gifts. So like they can just get like one lump sum from parents. But I mean, that's an extra like $50 to $75 on top of your registration fee right there that the team mom or coach is paying out of pocket for your child.
Mm-hmm. And as they get older, if they do tournaments and all that kind of stuff too, and in comp soccer, it's even more because you are required to do tournaments. The uniform is also not included. They lose their soccer ball every 10 seconds. I mean, it's a lot. And when the team manager or the coach is like paying for all these out of pocket and then waiting for 12 different families to pay them, it's hard to keep track of too. So just if you see it, just fucking pay it right then. Just pay it.
Honestly, I never keep track because it's just, what am I gonna like hunt them down?
No,
You owe me $15. It's just,
Exactly.
it's not
And then it
worth
feels
it. And I just, yeah. And because yes, like that $15 isn't gonna make or break me, but when 12 of you don't pay, yeah, I'm annoyed. So
Yeah.
I personally have never kept track just because it's been more trouble than it's worth. And for the most part, everybody pays. But I know for baseball this past season, I have at least two parents who just never totally blew me off.
Yeah. I guess that's the one good thing about comp soccer. You're like required to get a team bank account. So everything goes in there. And if we can't pay because somebody didn't, I'll just be like, hey. So I think that'll
Yeah.
easier, honestly.
Another one is to be a pristine communicator yourself. So if your kid's not going to be at practice or a game, please communicate that. Literally nobody cares, but please just tell somebody, because if you have ever had a kid, I'm like really stuck on baseball. I cannot think about anything else.
It's
on
over.
first of all,
Taking breath.
it is such a pain in the ass to make a lineup. It is such a pain in the ass because you have to have, you want to balance it so that not every kid's sitting every game. And then you want kids in the outfield, you want kids in the infield, and you will have a parent come up to you and ask why your kid is sitting twice in one game. And guess what? Guess what the reason will be? Is because somebody didn't RSVP properly and said they were coming to the game and then didn't show up. So at the last second, you had to scratch them out and scramble to rework that lineup that you just spent 45 minutes before the game perfecting, and now it's all fucked up, and now a parent's mad at you. So
that's the other thing. Like, just chill. Like, if you feel like your kid's getting slighted, they aren't. It's probably a mistake. They're not doing it on purpose, especially in rec sports, for God's sakes. Chill out.
Yeah, and I feel like we're stuck on all the sports.
We are talking about sports again.
Damn it. Can you tell where the origins of this episode started?
Oh my God.
And I think the same can be said for school or other activities too, is that I know there are certain activities where they take attendance and like, if you miss so many practices or whatever, you're done. But I think any reasonable coach, teacher, whatever, if you talk to them, say like, hey, we have this going on and they're not going to make it. Like, I know we missed last week too. Like, after this, we're good. Like, it's fine. We just want to know so we can plan accordingly. And I think that is one thing you can do to be a good lowercase v volunteer. So I think we talked about like at school how there's things you can do that aren't, like direct serious responsibilities. But there is probably something on any team or organization that your kid is in that you can do that doesn't require you to be there. Like if you're not the parent who gets them to practice, if like a grandparent or like somebody else is dropping them off at practice and you can't do that, then, like be in charge of the team banner, because that's a pain in the ass to set up. Like there is probably something you can do. And honestly, if all you can do is get your kid to practice or games on time, ready to go, that's enough.
Well, and I would add to that, like you can at least, if that's all you can do, just give a heartfelt thank you to the team manager and the coach. Like, thank you so much for volunteering your time, because words of affirmation go a long way too, honestly.
Right. Right. Or, you can always organize the coach's gift at the end of the season. You can help coordinate the team party. And at the very least, if you're not doing anything, just keep your opinions and feedback to yourself. Because there's always one parent that can never respond when there's a call for volunteers or extra help. It never fails. Every team I've been on. There's one parent who goes radio silent. And then the second that there is something to be said about something insignificant, like the bows for the girl's hair.
Oh God,
they have all the opinions in the world. Yeah. If you didn't pass out the right jersey to their kid, they will be up your ass. Please don't be that parent. Please, for the love of God, do not be that parent. If you are not being helpful, then shut up. I had the league for trophies messed up on a kid's name and wrote the kid's last name twice and on his trophy. And I'm like, how in the world am I going to get this fixed? Like, supposed to pass them out tomorrow. And to make it even worse, the kid is a twin and his brother's name was right. And like, I double checked what I had entered in. Like, I entered it properly. Like, it was a problem that the company made. And it's like, how did you fuck that up? His brother's on the team and his name was right. Like, how did you? So and this season has kind of been one for the record books with like persnickety parents. So I'm just like, I can't, like, I'm limping to this finish line for baseball. How in the world am I going to deal with this stupid trophy thing? I want to hand this trophy off and be done. And now I'm going to have to like fix this. So I'd already preemptively sent an email to like the league coordinator of like, hey, this is what happened. I haven't talked to the parent yet. And so I like went like hat in hand, like, I'm so sorry. The name is wrong. I promise we'll fix it. And like music to my ears that I was like, oh, it's fine. And he laughed and he's like, it's no big deal. He's like, it's
thank God
6-year-old baseball. And I was like, thank you so much. I'm like, you don't even understand. Like, thank you so much for taking that in stride. Like, and I kind of had a feeling they would, but I was just prepared for the worst because that's how the season had been. Yeah. And honestly, like, I feel like that's the best attitude to have. It wasn't like the Stanley Cup where his name was written wrong. Like, who cares?
Right. So, yeah, just more grace, more
pick your battles. Yeah. Make it worth it, please.
Yeah, totally.
All right. So some things you guys said that make good volunteers. Things that kept popping up over and over. Consistency. If you say you're going to do something, do it. So that follow through. Take initiative. Just if you see something that needs to be done, step in, because guess what? No one's going to yell at you. They're probably going to thank God you did that because I was trying to get to it. This one I thought was funny. Being a good influence to other volunteers. I can't say that that's been me.
What do they mean by that?
I don't know. I think they mean like, well, this is where the no gossip came into. So maybe if they're saying like, listen, if you aren't, I mean, this goes for me in all aspects, but like, if you don't want a snarky comment, don't sit by me.
Well, I think there's a difference between that and like being not inclusive, because I think maybe that might be coming from like, especially with like parent teacher groups, there can be a problem where those who do volunteer become pretty cliquey, and it feels kind of impossible to penetrate a group like that. And I think there are a lot of assumptions made. So maybe that's kind of where it's coming from. But yeah, snarky comments, hello. That's what makes it fun.
Also, someone said checking in to see if help is needed. I think that is the key right there. If you can't help like at the beginning of the program, check in at the end. Hey, what's going on? Does anybody need anything? And even if you keep getting a like, oh, we're good, keep checking in because they're probably not good and they probably don't really think you mean it. And so keep checking.
Well, and then the other side of that is the volunteers who are being asked to like be able to delegate, like have something to pass off, because it is easier to say, no, we're good, and just handle it all. Well, it's not easier, but in a way it's easier to handle it all yourself, but delegate.
Well, that's what makes the program, that adds to its longevity too. If you have more people involved, more hands in the pot, yes, it complicates it because more humans always complicates everything. Sure. But then you have more people who know how to do things, and it's not like, oh, that one person stepped down from their whatever role and now nobody knows how to do anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, delegating is hard, but you have to let it go.
Yeah.
Keep what is the most important to you and then let somebody else take the
Let it
rest.
go, Elsa. Let it go. That is also how we all collectively get rid of burnout too. We have to lighten the load on ourselves and pass it off so it's lighter for everyone.
All right. This is a personal bugaboo of mine, and I'm probably going to make a lot of enemies.
Step on that soapbox.
Does having multiple kids and multiple conflicting activities excuse you from volunteering?
Personally, I can't imagine having more than 2 kids because it sounds impossible because of this very reason. Does it excuse you? I don't know. I'm not in charge.
Well, as someone who's been in charge, I'm going to say it doesn't. I'm sorry. I am empathetic to your family size. I get that your kids need activities, they need socialization, they need to develop skills. I get all those things. I get that multiple kids can be in multiple activities that require multiple different things. It's not, there is something that can be done for everybody. We can meet you where you are.
Mm-hmm.
But when you never show up and you just dump your kid on the sidewalk and then peel away, that's not helpful. And I think this also can always be about how it's presented. If you can like make it a priority to show up to the first parent meeting of the season or event or year or whatever and get the basic information. And then if you know from there on out that you're going to be MIA, then you go talk to whoever's in charge and say like, hey, I can help from afar. Let me know how much money you need. Let me know what I can do from home. Let me know I can be at these games, these tournaments, these events, whatever. I can pick up some food for the volunteers who have been setting up the carnival all day. Like there is something that you can be doing. And this is something I've seen everywhere, like across all environments. There's always one mom who's way overextended with the number of kids she has and is frazzled. And I get it. All the empathy in the world for that. But then stop signing your kids up. What you're looking for is a day camp. This is a team sport. Like it's and I know that's gonna upset people, and that's fine. But sorry.
I mean, and I think you said this in there, but it really just comes down to communication. Like if you feel so spread thin, just let the person in charge, the coach, the team manager, whatever, just let them know that. And if there is anything that you can do from home, like just there are ways to help that aren't going to spread you even more thin, I think.
Right. When I think this kind of goes back to just being a good participant. If you can't do any of the extra stuff, but your kid is there with the proper equipment at the exact practice time, ready to go, then that's enough. Like you saw the notification that went out last minute that, hey, we're in this color jersey and not this color, and like you're on it. That's literally enough for me. But I've had so many parents just like, well, I don't know. I have too many kids and too many things. I can't keep track. And it's like, well, that's a really quick way to shit on a volunteer because would you like me to go into your home and dress your child? I don't know. And maybe that's a point for you to be introspective and like, wow, I'm really overextended and I can't do all these things. And we need to take a look at the family about what's going on here.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any friends that way. And I want to be able to help. And if I do and will if I can, but it's all how you're presenting it. I've had so many sassy responses to simple things like that. It's like, I'm sorry, that's just like a basic requirement of playing a game that you all have to be in the same jersey. Like, sorry, no, your kid can't just wear whatever socks they want. It's called uniform. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Especially at school, because school volunteering trumps all other volunteering, because that's the most important part.
Most
Like, that your
important.
kid gets a quality education. I don't care how good they are at baseball. If they can't read, they're never going to play baseball. Guess what? Because they're never going to make their college team. So
Oh no.
it just, I don't know.
I'm with you.
The
I see both
backpacks.
sides, you know.
I do. And especially being in the classroom now, I do see both sides with like busy parents. And because I feel it too when I get home. I don't want, the last thing I want to do is look through a bunch of papers from school. But that's the name of the game. Like, if you don't like it, then you need to find a different way to
That's partly
change it.
where my crankiness comes in. It's like the people who complain about that and then don't do anything. I'm like, I feel that too. Like, I am overextended. I am doing a lot. But here I am, still showing up. And even if that's
But the people who are overextended are often overextended because people are underextended. So, and I know there are always circumstances that I'm not privy to, things I don't see, but and
aside,
I'm not expecting you to give me your life story. Just be like, I would love to do more. I just can't right now. Bottom line, that's enough.
yeah.
Right. Not
Are we going to lose all of our listeners?
No, because when the most responded to question on Instagram was, are you having trouble getting volunteers? Like, here are some things people said. It was just an onslaught of, oh my God, yes. It's one said, no one wants to be the head coach, but everybody wants to share responsibility. That's exactly what happened for baseball this year, is that we had 6 assistant coaches.
Stop.
And guess what? Nobody can be there with that many schedules. You think that we could get somebody there all the time? No, we couldn't. Like, nobody wants to take on the full responsibility of something. People say it's always the same ones. You have to beg. I mean, even when it's something that they know they have to do, that's a requirement of the organization, you still have to beg people to do this stuff. It's exhausting. So I think for the most part, people are feeling this. And the goal of this wasn't like to attack people and call them out for not volunteering. I hope that this sheds some light on the perspective and frustrations of the people who are doing the work. And I get life circumstances, all those things. But if this helps you see that, like, maybe I can be a little bit better about getting my kid to the game on time, or I can keep up with the communications a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great way to start.
Yeah. Harrison had a great soccer coach who the very first team meeting was like, he loves to coach. He wants the boys there, but that is really up to you, the parents. And you're a part of this team too. Like, just starting off with that, I think was really helpful. Like, it's up to you to get them here on time. It's up to you to make sure they have their uniform or whatever, because they're still 10 years old.
Right. And I think the same goes for school too. If you want, your kid to have their own Chromebook, or you want like this reading program or whatever, like, that comes from the PTC budget most of the time. And so then you need to help fundraise, or you need to throw some money at it, or, I don't know, or at least at bare minimum, read the flyer to know that it's happening.
Yeah. Yes, that would be wonderful.
So this back to school season, just, take a think. Where can I volunteer? Where can I support? Where would my skills best work? What fits in this season of life?
Yeah. How can I show up?
Those same people who always show up are freaking tired. So tired.
All right. Thank you for listening. We would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. We would love it if you would share this episode, maybe with your school community or in any PTO, PTA, PTC groups you're in. And, let's lighten the load of all of us together.
If you like what you just heard, and we hope you do, you can find more of us online at www.okayestmoms.com. We're also on all social media platforms, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Okayest Moms Blog. Or if you want to, you can send us an email at hey@okayestmoms.com.